All right, so the next step, now that we talked about proportions, we're gonna mentally think we have that kind of understood for now. Again, if you don't, let us know so we can help you get there, okay? Now the next layer is, now that we have those proportions, what are we gonna do with them? Well, we're going to add color, okay? So here's our color wheel. Our primary colors for pigment, in other words, things like paint, colored pencils, stuff that you would use in art class, are red, yellow, and blue, okay? And I orient the color wheel this way on purpose. I put yellow at the top. Does anybody know why I put yellow at the top? Because it's like that one. There's a reason that one has yellow at the top. Yep.
It's the lightest.
It's the lightest color. So when I say the lightest color, I mean the value of the hue, and I'm using some really technical terms here, the value of the hue is the lightest. Hue just means color, okay? So if you go around the color wheel, you are changing hues. It's what slice of colored pizza, if this was a pizza and you cut it up into pieces, the hue is which piece of pizza you would be referring to. You with me so far? Okay. Now what we're going to add to that hue is value. Value, as you know, is lights and darks, right? So yellow is our color or hue with our lightest value. And then the opposite of that, the darkest valued hue would be what?
Purple?
It is purple, yes. So purple is our darkest color because the value of purple is dark. It's a dark color. Yellow is the lightest. That's really important, and you're going to think about that a lot as we go through this project. Okay? Also, fun fact, many colored product manufacturers, people like Crayola or Faber-Castell or the colored pencil manufacturing companies, right? When you get a purple crayon or a purple marker or a purple colored pencil, we don't normally think of it as being that dark of a color because the actual purple pigment, if you get purple pigment by mixing red and blue, which you guys know is how you make purple, right? That color is dark, as we just said. It's so dark that it wouldn't be a very fun color to like color with. And most manufacturers that make these pigments and are making these colored products are making them for not just artists, but also like the general public, like children, like people who maybe don't take upper level art classes and don't understand color theory, right? They just want to color something a pretty purple. So they add white to their purple in order to make it prettier, to make it more visually pleasing, more interesting for people to use and to color with. So when you are choosing products, like colored pencils or markers or crayons, look for ones that have that deep purple hue, that like eggplant. It's like almost so dark that it's black because it's the darkest color on the color wheel. That will give you the most ability to reproduce the widest variety of colors. Okay? So like when you're in the art supply aisle and you're like, why is this set like $30 and this set is $12? Well, the $30 one has better, more accurate, better quality pigments in the fuller range, typically speaking, okay, than the ones that are just made to like, you know, color in coloring books and stuff like that. Okay, little fun fact for you. So, here's our color wheel. Lighter values are at the top. As we move our way down on both sides, our values get darker. Okay? So if I have something like an apple, let's say a red apple, right? What color am I probably going to start coloring with on that apple? This is an easy trick question.
Red.
Red, right? Now, if I have highlights and shadows on my apple, which would be like where the light source hits it, right, is where the highlight would be. And then the opposite of that, the underside where the shadow is, would be where the shadow is. Okay? I need to move around the color wheel towards my lighter hue or towards my darker hue. Okay? Question?
I feel like sometimes on apples though, like the dark part of an apple almost like skips the pink and goes straight to purple. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So why do you have to work, like I get the working from orange to yellow, but not the pink to purple.
This is a little misleading in that this pink looks bright because it's on the screen, and it's a difference between a light primary and a pigment primary. I wouldn't add pink in an apple situation. I would do exactly what you said, and I would go straight to purple. Okay,
Awesome.
good question. So, as you're working towards the lighter part of the apple, you're gonna first blend orange, and then you're gonna blend towards yellow. Even if the apple itself is red, even if it doesn't have orange and yellow spots in it, you're still gonna use those blends to lighten your color, and that will look like there's a highlight on that apple. Make sense? Oppositely, exactly what Sawyer just said, in the shadow areas, you're going to work towards purple, and then in some cases, you might even go just a little beyond purple and add some blue. Because a bluer purple, a cooler purple, tends to look a little darker than a warmer purple. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's do another example. Let's say I have a green pear. Okay. I'm going to start with probably what color in the majority of the pear?
Green.
Green. Okay. And that green might be a cooler green or it might be a warmer green. There are certainly some variations we can pick there. Okay. We're not just going to typically accept the first green that comes out of the box. We might have to blend that green with something else to, you know, if it's a more olive green or if it's a more lime green, those are two very different colors, right? Then, where am I going to blend, what colors am I going to blend in my highlight areas?
Like lime greens and yellows.
Yep, so I'm going to use these brighter greens and then work towards yellow. And then in the shadow areas, what's the first color I'm going to blend in?
Like forest green?
Maybe, but more likely I'm going to stick with the color wheel and then use what? Blue. That would be my first one. So what is likely going to happen, like you're saying forest green, the blue over whatever green you have is probably going to start making that forest green color.
I see.
So you have more control of it this way?
Wait, so when you're doing a pear, say you're doing a pear, you want to, say it's like the light is at the top and the dark is at the bottom.
Yep.
You want to take your base color and color everything that is that color and darker, and then leave the light for the yellow.
I start kind of in the highlight areas first, and I will show you, I will demo this and you'll kind of see how I do
then
it.
it doesn't matter.
I start in the highlight areas and then I get darker, but then at some point, once I kind of have a little bit of a base in everywhere, I kind of go back and forth. So I'll show you that. Good question. What you do need to do though is you really need to watch what the shape or the form actually looks like. So, and I don't think this is what you meant, I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah.
I would not assume that the whole bottom of my pear needs to be in shadow. Because maybe it's not. Maybe there are highlights down there because it has lumps and bumps or it has some sort of irregularity on the form. Does that make sense? So just like when we said with grids, we have to really pay attention to what is actually showing on the grid. You have to pay attention to what is actually showing on that fruit or that object or whatever you're drawing. Okay, draw what's actually there, not what you assume. And it's hard. It's a really hard habit to break. You guys experience that. Okay? So on the pear, I would move towards blue, and then I would move towards purple. Okay? Does moving and navigating around the hues of the color wheel for highlights and shadows make sense? Okay. Now, where would I use white? And not all white pencils are created equal, and sometimes you can't color a white pencil over something that you already colored because it doesn't do anything, but some pencils you can. If there's a glare or a shine or a surface that has that really high gloss surface, that's where I'm going to use white. Okay? Typically not for highlights unless it's a really pastel colored object. Okay? So like something like this, can you guys see this color? It's like a kind of pastel green. Okay, I wouldn't start with like a full-blown lime green on this. I would probably mix green with white to get that kind of base color, then work towards yellow and highlights. Okay, questions on this so far? All right, Now we're gonna go in a different direction with the color wheel. Now we're gonna go across the wheel. So remember when I talked about the difference between like a lime green and an olive green? Well, one is more bright, more vivid, more vibrant. One is more intense. And the other is kind of more dull, okay? This is where going across the wheel comes into play. So we go around the wheel to go highlights and shadows, or to create highlights and shadows. We go across the wheel to mute or de-intensify, reduce intensity on our colors. Where might we have less intense colors? Well, we just said if it's a different version of that color, so like an olive green instead of a lime green. Where else might we have a less intense version of a color? Let's say on our pear or on our apple. Where might those less intense colors fall? Any idea? You're close. We're going to have less intense colors where we have less intense light. So where we have less light in those shadow areas, not only is the color going to get darker, but it's also going to get duller. Does that make sense? Okay, it doesn't sound like it should be a mind-blowing thought, but it kind of is, because we're not used to, oftentimes, thinking of colors that way. Okay? So now, in those shadow areas where we're using reds and blues and purples, if it's too bright looking, we're also going to have to then kind of accommodate for that or react to that and pull in some of those opposite colors. So in an orange, let's say we start with an orange fruit, right? What color are we gonna work towards in the shadow areas? We'll first use, as we're going darker, go from orange to, what's the next darkest color? Yep.
Red.
Yep. So we're gonna start at orange, we're gonna go to red, then we'll go purple in that shadow area. But chances are, we're also going to have to use those opposites to dull the shadow area down. So we might be adding some green in there, we might be adding some blue in there. That makes sense, at least on a basic level? Okay? So I'm telling you the theory so that you kind of have a foundation of what to do. When we look at it in person, you're gonna have to do a lot of, okay, how does this look? This looks too orange, okay, I need to dull it down. Maybe this looks too light, okay, I need to darken it. You're gonna have to constantly ask yourself, this looks too what? And then that will lead you to what to actually do about it. Does that make sense? Okay, for today, we've got a couple minutes left. I want you to grab some just basic colors, like the 6 colors on the color wheel would be fine. The 3 primaries and the 3 secondary colors. And I want you to practice blending around the circle. And then I want you to practice blending across the circle. And I want you to see how it affects those colors. You're going to see your colors get lighter and darker. You're going to see your colors get duller. Okay? Just light layers of shading. Don't do anything heavy, just build up some light layers on top of each other. Then tomorrow or Monday, I will show you more specifically like what this actually looks like in person. Make sense? Questions? Okay, go grab your colors and try it out.
What? I've never thought about it before.